Andrew and Emily had been married for 7 years, both in their early 30s. Andrew worked at a logistics company, a stable and respectable job that he genuinely enjoyed. His dedication and calm nature earned him the admiration of his colleagues. Emily, on the other hand, ran a small flower shop, something she had dreamed of long before they tied the knot. At one point, she even suggested that Andrew quit his job so they could turn the shop into a family business, but he wasn't ready to leave behind a career he loved. They were content, each carving out their own professional paths. When one evening, Emily's parents came over for dinner. The house was filled with laughter, the table packed with delicious food, and there was a certain sparkle in Emily's eyes. As the conversation buzzed around her, she suddenly cleared her throat. "Mom, Dad, Andrew, I have something to share," she said, exhaling shakily. "We're going to have a baby." A stunned silence fell over the room before it erupted into joyous cheers. Emily's mother even teared up with happiness. As for Andrew, he was completely taken aback. They had been trying to conceive for years without success, and he had quietly started to fear it might never happen. But now, this moment felt nothing short of miraculous. The next 9 months were a dream for Andrew. He practically floated through them, tended to Emily's every need. He catered to her cravings, ensured she was comfortable, and pampered her whenever possible. And then, finally, their daughter was born. Emily let Andrew choose a name, and he decided on Lily. From the moment she entered the world, Andrew was utterly smitten. After work, he would rush home to help with Lily, giving Emily a much-needed break from the endless demands of caring for a newborn. Thanks to his support, she managed to keep her flower shop running without having to hand over too many responsibilities to others. Every 6 months or so, Andrew made a point to send Emily away for a short retreat, a peaceful weekend at a nature resort where she could relax and recharge. When Lily turned 5, Emily became pregnant again. Andrew was overjoyed. Given the struggles they had faced before conceiving their first child, he had sometimes wondered if he was infertile, though doctors had reassured him otherwise. So when Emily waved a positive pregnancy test in front of him, he could hardly contain his excitement. "Maybe this time it'll be a boy," Emily teased. "As long as the baby is healthy, I couldn't ask for more," Andrew grinned, wrapping her in a tight hug. "Speaking of which," Emily added playfully, "I could really use a break. Think you could book me that resort trip next month." It wasn't part of their usual getaway routine, but Andrew didn't hesitate. With another baby on the way, he wanted Emily to feel as relaxed as possible. She left for her retreat, returning a week later with a slightly more pronounced baby bump. Around the same time, Andrew met a new client at work, a man named David. The first thing Andrew noticed about him was how impeccably dressed he was, his suit crisp and polished, his demeanor exuding confidence. But what stood out the most was the unusual heart-shaped birthmark on David's neck. As they shook hands and discussed an upcoming shipping contract, David smirked. "So, you're the guy I need to talk to for all the specifics?" "That's right," Andrew replied, getting down to business. They finalized some details, and as David was preparing to leave, he turned back with an oddly curious expression. "Are you married?" he asked. "Yes, happily," Andrew responded, slightly puzzled. "I have a wife and a young daughter." "Interesting," David murmured. "I had my reasons for asking." And with that, he walked away. Andrew found the encounter a little strange, but he didn't dwell on it. David seemed like a valuable business connection, sharp, professional, and well-spoken. Meanwhile, as Emily's due date approached, she became increasingly irritable. Small things sparked heated arguments, her patience wearing thin over the simplest matters. Andrew did his best to be understanding, assuming that the stress and discomfort of pregnancy were to blame. He reassured himself that once the baby arrived, things would settle down. Then, the long-awaited day finally came. Andrew was thrilled. He had insisted on being in the delivery room, but Emily strongly opposed the idea. Their disagreement turned into a tense argument. In the middle of the night, Emily shook him awake. "It's time," she whispered. Their second child was on the way, and Andrew could barely contain his excitement. But nothing could have prepared him for what came next. Andrew and Emily had decided not to find out the baby's gender before birth, preferring to keep a surprise. They had already chosen names. If it was a girl, they would call her Polly, and if it was a boy, Miles. Early the next morning, Andrew's phone buzzed with a message from Emily. Attached was a photo along with the words, "Congratulations, we have another daughter." A huge grin spread across Andrew's face as he gazed at the image. He immediately showed it to Lily, who beamed with excitement, admiring the tiny new addition to their family. The following day, Andrew received an unexpected call from David, the same David from the shipping contract. He mentioned an urgent business matter and asked to meet, even though it was Andrew's day off. Wanting to maintain good client relationships, Andrew agreed. Since he was already out running errands for Emily and the baby, they arranged to meet at a coffee shop in a nearby mall. When Andrew arrived, David was already seated. "Hey, David," Andrew greeted, shaking his hand before pulling out some documents. David's eyes flickered to the shopping bags Andrew had with him. "Stocking up, huh? Bet your wife and the newborn have plenty of demands right now." Andrew chuckled. "Yeah, my wife gave birth just 3 days ago. I'm making sure they have everything they need." His pride was evident in his smile. David nodded. "I know." Andrew blinked, puzzled. "You know?" "I know your wife had a baby," David clarified, his tone deliberate as he placed his phone on the table. Andrew leaned forward, confusion deepening. On the screen was a message identical to the one Emily had sent him. "Congratulations, we have a daughter." The same photo accompanied it. His breath caught in his throat. A cold wave of unease swept over him. I don't understand. Why do you have this? What are you trying to say?" David met his gaze evenly. "Andrew, we're both grown men. You deserve the truth. That baby is mine. I don't think Emily told you." The words hit like a wrecking ball. A chair scraped loudly as Andrew shot to his feet, knocking the table slightly in his rush. His hands trembled as he grabbed his things and stormed out of the cafe, heart pounding so fiercely it drowned out all rational thought. He climbed into his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, his vision blurred with the sting of unshed tears. No, I won't confront Emily. Not yet. The thought of her betrayal clawed at him, threatening to break him completely. But he needed proof. Accusing her without evidence wouldn't help. A DNA test. He'd do it quietly. That was the only way to be sure. The next day marked the baby's discharge from the hospital. Andrew arrived with flowers, his heart thudding anxiously as they placed a newborn in his arms. She was small, delicate, wrapped snugly in a soft blanket. But as he held her, a single question consumed him. Was she even mine? His eyes darted over her tiny features, searching desperately for something. Anything that resembled him. Then, as he gently removed the hat covering her head, his blood ran cold. There, on the baby's neck, was a distinct heart-shaped birthmark, the exact same one David had. A knot tightened in his stomach. He turned to Emily, his voice sharp and accusing. "Emily, what is this?" She froze. A flicker of panic flashed across her face before she stammered. Maybe my grandmother had one like that." Andrew's jaw clenched as he locked eyes with her. "Why are you lying to me?" His voice was low, dangerous, as he grasped her shoulders. Emily's facade shattered. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she crumbled under the weight of the truth. Sobbing, she confessed everything. She had met David during one of the retreats Andrew had lovingly sent her on. One thing led to another, and she had fallen into an affair. When she discovered she was pregnant, she considered ending the pregnancy, but then Andrew had expressed so much joy about having another child. She couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. David had begged her to leave Andrew, but he had no interest in raising her older daughter. In the end, she stayed with Andrew, pretending the affair never happened. Andrew listened in stunned silence. When she finished, he didn't speak. He simply turned and walked out the door. The first call he made was to David. His voice was steady, devoid of emotion. "I'm filing for divorce. I'm keeping Lily. You can pick up Emily and her things whenever you want." A few years later, Andrew sold his apartment and moved to another city with Lily, determined to build a new life far from the wreckage of his past. Emily, on the other hand, moved in with David. At first, things seemed fine, but as their daughter grew older, David's behavior shifted. He became critical, constantly nitpicking Emily's appearance and actions. He offered no help, only demands. She tried to rekindle the warmth she had once shared with Andrew, but David was cold, indifferent. Eventually, his behavior turned violent. The bruises she hid beneath her clothing became a painful reminder of the mistake she had made. She had lost most of her friends. Many had taken Andrew's side after the truth came out. With nowhere to turn, regret consumed her. And then one day, David left. No explanation, no warning, just gone. Emily found herself alone, struggling to raise their child without support. Only then did she fully grasp the magnitude of her betrayal. She had thrown away a loving, stable marriage for a fleeting indulgence. And in the end, she was left with nothing but regret.